getting ready to start, but there are plenty of chairs here still if you would like to take a seat. Thank you to Oregon Wine Lab for hosting our Community Birth Center's first press conference. We're looking forward to answering your questions and sharing our plans for a new birth center for Lane County. My name is AlexAnn Westlake, and I'm a certified nurse midwife and the executive director of our Community Birth Center. And even more importantly, I was born in Eugene with the assistance of a nurse midwife and raised in Lane County. I'm going to share some information about our Community Birth Center, and then I will introduce the others who are sitting up here with me to help answer questions. Lane County has been home to a birth center for 40 years. That's since the late 1970s, until the recent closure of the Nurse Midwifery Birth Center this fall. Our Community Birth Center is a new nonprofit organization with plans to restore the long tradition of outstanding pregnancy, birth, postpartum, newborn, lactation, and women's health care offered through a community-based nurse midwifery birth center and health clinic in Lane County. Our Community Birth Center services will provide families with the choice of a nationally accredited birth center facility, access to community-based birth that is covered by health insurance, support and wraparound services from preconception through parenting, and improved outcomes, all at a lower cost to the healthcare system. We are launching our capital fundraising campaign now to fund the startup and early operating costs of this new birth center. Anyone can help with our mission to restore birth center services in Lane County by making a donation. Contributions of all kinds and amounts are needed to start this new birth center. We invite everyone to make a donation on our website or by check to our Community Birth Center. We are even accepting donations today. When you walked in, there are donation envelopes by the door, and you're welcome to take one and give it to one of our volunteers today. In addition, we also accept donations on our website, ourcommunitybirthcenter.org, and through our website, individuals can also sign up to volunteer, complete our community survey to gather community input for this new birth center, and join our contact list to stay up to date. Everyone is invited to our Capital Fundraising Campaign launch event happening on Wednesday, December 11th from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at Capitella Wines. This will be a family-friendly event, and we look forward to honoring our donors at the event. Join our email list or follow on Facebook for event details. I would like to introduce the others who will be helping answer questions with me today. This is Chris Heritage. Chris is a certified nurse midwife who has practiced midwifery in our community for 24 years. She is well loved and respected by the families who she has cared for and by the healthcare community. Chris is a member of the founding board of directors of our Community Birth Center. And in just a moment, Chris will make some remarks before we start answering questions. This is Kelsey Blake. Kelsey is the mother of 2 birth center boys, both born at the former Nurse Midwifery Birth Center. She's here to speak and answer questions on behalf of families who utilize birth center services. She will share her beliefs about the value of the birth center services in our community, and also Kelsey is a professional doula. A doula is a trained labor and postpartum support person who families may hire to support them through the joys and challenges of pregnancy and postpartum and birth. Lastly, Mary Carpenter. Mary Carpenter is the president of our founding board of directors for our Community Birth Center. She has been a certified nurse midwife in our community for many years, and although currently retired from clinical practice here in Lane County, she continues to do international work. And she was one of the nurse midwives who helped care for my mom when she was pregnant with me. Lastly, I'd like to say a special thank you to Lane County Friends of the Birth Center. The Friends are the consumer advisory board of the Birth Center. They are a group of birth center parents who passionately care about this community and intimately know the importance of birth center services in Lane County. We are honored that the Friends of the Birth Center will continue their work in partnership with our Community Birth Center to advocate for this new freestanding accredited nurse midwifery birth center. And we thank the Friends for their outstanding advocacy and support through all of the challenges faced by the birth center community this year. I also want to thank the founding board of directors of our Community Birth Center. The board of directors includes, and please wave if you're here, Mary Carpenter, Chris Heritage, Rachel Basalo, Ricky Grand, Dennis Carr, Kara Schnoes, Ruth Ilanwuka, Teresa Rourke, and Dr. Justine Parker. Our advisors include Cindy Hunter, Dr. Randy Lewis, Ann Carney Nelson, Representative Marty Wilde, Dr. Doug Leonard, and Dr. Deborah Firth. And our Stewardship Council includes Lynn Kane, Jenny Noyce, Rabbi Jacob Siegel, and Holly Russell. These individuals have committed to help guide and support the development of our community birth center as we work to restore birth center services to Lane County. I look forward to answering questions about our community birth center and sharing how you can help to restore birth center services.
I'm getting over a cold, so. My name is Kelsey Blake, and as AlexAnn said, I gave birth to both of my children at the former birth center under the care of the nurse midwives. Both of my births were joyful, empowering experiences, and much of that was due to the holistic midwifery model of care that was provided to me at the nurse midwifery birth center. Throughout my pregnancies, the nurse midwives provided prenatal care that felt intimate and very present. I was able to lead my own care. Walking into each appointment instilled a sense of calm in me due to the home-like atmosphere of the birth center that lends to normalizing natural birth. I was able to utilize the many resources available at the birth center during my pregnancies, including birth and breastfeeding classes. The birth center provided a comfortable setting for my normal physiological birth. I was free to move throughout the facility from bed to hallway to shower. The nurse midwives remained ever present, calm, and confident. Throughout labor, my intuition was not only heard, but also trusted. This unwavering support from the nurse midwives allowed me to focus solely on my intrinsic ability to birth my babies. The former nurse midwifery birth center supported me throughout the postpartum period. I had access to 24-hour lactation support over the phone, which I used in those early, challenging first weeks of breastfeeding. And the weekly baby clinic held at the birth center was a place where I was able to ask general questions about my postpartum health, about breastfeeding, and about the health of my new baby. At the weekly baby clinics, I built profound friendships and was able to gain confidence in my role as a new mother. Access to the birth center and the midwifery model of care that it provides was integral to my healthy pregnancies and births and to the healthy start to life that both of my sons received. As a birth doula, I've had many clients and friends reach out to me out of their concern for the lack of access to the birth center in Lane County. As a mother, birth worker, and community member, I can speak to the fact that our community birth center will be a vital and well sought after resource to families in Lane County.
In 1985, almost 35 years ago, before I was a nurse midwife, I gave birth to my son at the Nurse Midwifery Birth Center. The experience was literally life-changing for me as I started school to become a nurse and a nurse midwife and changed my career entirely shortly after my son was born. One of the reasons I became a nurse midwife and why I still love this work is the ability to protect a woman's right to ask for and receive care based on her values and her beliefs. Low-risk birth is not a medical event. It is a life-changing milestone for a woman and her family. And a birth center focuses on the woman and her experience, not on the institutional needs, not on the needs of the caregiver. A birth center is an appropriate, safe, and cost-effective place for birth to happen. Women and families of our community have had this option for 40 years, and they deserve to keep that option. I am delighted to be a part of the effort to restore a freestanding nurse midwifery-led birth center in this community.
We will open up for questions now. Oh, yes, we can pass the mic around, or I can repeat the question, whatever's easier. How about I'll repeat the question, because I think I'll be able to hear you all when you say the question, so I'll repeat it before we answer.
Just curious what the business model is going to be. How is the birth center going to be financially viable?
This is a question about the business model for the new birth center and how we're going to ensure that the birth center is financially viable. Our community birth center is established as a nonprofit in the state of Oregon, and our board of directors and myself, the executive director, have worked very hard on a projected budget and business plan to ensure that we have a sustainable organization for this community. The plan is for the birth center to sustain primarily off of insurance reimbursement, but it is nice to be a nonprofit to be able to supplement that with fundraising as needed, although that's not going to be our primary source of funding in the future. That said, to get up and running, we do need to fundraise to start this project, and so that's why we're launching our capital fundraising campaign now.
Hi. Will the birth center accept OHP health insurance?
This is a question about insurance and will we accept OHP insurance and what kinds of insurance will we accept. The birth center is planning to accept all kinds of health insurance and most importantly OHP. That's very important to us to serve the needs of the community. And historically, the birth center has served about 35% of the women who come to the birth center are on OHP insurance, and we plan to continue to keep that available. And I'd like to add in addition that there's actually a recent research study that was done that looked at women on Medicaid or on OHP, what we call it is OHP, in the U.S. who receive birth center care, and it compared their care to traditional care and birth center care, and the outcomes were better and the cost was lower to the healthcare system when these women received care through the birth center, including they had lower rates of C-sections, lower rates of preterm birth, and fewer low birth weight babies, all from getting care through the birth center.
As a new mother, when I gave birth at the birth center, the nurse midwifery birth center, it was important to me that I had that support and that type of care, the holistic approach. But with my new mother anxiety, I appreciated the fact that the nurse midwifery partnered with doctors and hospitals. Will that mean a continued practice with our birth center?
This is a question about how we plan to partner with doctors in the future for the birth center, and we do plan to maintain partnerships throughout the healthcare community. It is important to have a network for caring for pregnant families, and we are already actively having meetings with various healthcare providers throughout the community to maintain those warm connections. We want warm connections with the hospital, warm connections with doctors, warm connections with other nurse practitioners, so that we can provide the best care possible to each family depending on what their needs are.
The previous birth center received a number of acknowledgments of a national nature. I believe it was designated as a well baby designation, and there was a strong connection to the National Certified Nurse Midwife Organization. Will the new model also strive for those levels of care and designations?
Yes, definitely. This is a question about the designations that the birth center has had in the past and will have in the future. The birth center in Lane County has been accredited by the Commission for the Accreditation of Birth Centers, which is a national organization accrediting birth centers and ensuring that they meet safety standards and have appropriate policies in place. And then in addition, the birth center has been certified as baby friendly, which means that they are very supportive of breastfeeding and are our community birth center plans to seek both of those certifications and accreditations in the future as well. It's very important to us to maintain that high standard of care that we have in the past, and so we will be seeking those accreditations.
What is your fundraising goal and how much do you need to get started?
Yes, so this is a question about our fundraising goal. We have created a projected budget that includes the startup funds needed and the operating funds. And as many people know, the first couple years are the hardest for any new organization, whether or not it's a nonprofit. And in this case, we've generated a fundraising goal of $775,000. That goal will cover the startup costs and the first year of operations to get us to a point where we can be sustaining more on insurance reimbursement. So that is the goal that we've set to achieve, to open our doors and get through that first year, which is the hardest year for any new business.
We delivered both of our daughters at the Nurse Midwifery Birth Center, our second one with Chris, and had lovely, very life-changing experiences. My question is, will the birth center still offer the afterbirth things like home visits, breastfeeding, and baby clinic support, which we used especially with our first daughter and were so important to us?
So the question was about support after birth, which is really critical. There's really 4 trimesters to birth, the first 3 trimesters before birth, and then the fourth one after birth. We do plan to have lactation support 24/7. We're planning a baby clinic. We're planning to have that ongoing support postpartum. We think it's really important. We're also hoping to have some connections with mental health services and other things to address postpartum needs. Thanks for asking that. Oh, and home visits, yes.
What is the training and licensure that goes into a certified nurse midwife?
In the state of Oregon, we are required for our licensure to have a bachelor's degree in nursing and then a master's degree in midwifery. And it's considered an advanced practice nurse. And with that comes the ability to get hospital privileges and to be able to prescribe medications as well as to take patients with insurance.
And in terms of the fundraising, if all a person had was $5 a month or 10 or 20 per month to contribute, that would still be valuable to the fundraising effort.
Yes, this is a question about fundraising. And even if someone just has $5 to contribute or $5 a month, it is still helpful to our effort. Donations of all types and sizes are helpful. We've also had people donate services already. So if you have a professional skill that you feel like would help us in starting this new organization, that is also a donation and that's appreciated. All donations are tax deductible as well, and you're welcome to reach out to us for more details about that. The online portal right now where you can donate on our website also accepts reoccurring donations that are auto-reoccurring, so you can sign up to donate $5 a month and it will automatically donate for you. So that's an option available. We've also had some people make matching donations. Some employers offer matching donations, and I'm happy to have you reach out to me via the email on our website and help coordinate if your employer offers matching donations.
Staffing, when it opens up, how many midwives are you looking to have to begin with?
Yes, this new organization, this is a question about staffing and how many midwives we'll have. So the new birth center will start small and grow. We will start out with a minimum of 2 nurse midwives for our practice, as well as some nurses and support staff as a minimum starting point, and then depending on how quickly it grows, we'll grow from there with it.
comment about the business model. The first 3 birth centers that we had in this community, the first one was in conjunction with the Eugene Clinic, which is now part of Peace Health. The other 2 were then also part of Peace Health. And I think the business model of being a small business, an independent, freestanding, is going to work to our advantage so that we will be able to make the decisions about the business side of the practice ourselves as opposed to a larger organization that has many other concerns in addition to a birth center. I think that's probably going to promote a longer tenure for this birth center.
And also gives us the ability to serve the best needs of the community and focus on what does the birthing community in Lane County need.
Where will the new birth center be, and have you found a building yet?
This is a question about where the birth center will be located, if we found a building yet. We are searching for a facility for the birth center. If anyone happens to own a former medical clinic that could be remodeled into a birth center, if they would like to lease to us, we are on the lookout. We have toured a couple of facilities and are looking for something that's the right fit. Primarily looking in Springfield because we want to maintain that close proximity to our local hospitals so that we can have that that connection and that ease of transport when needed, because sometimes we do have to go to the hospital, and so we want to stay close to our hospitals and maintain that warm connection there. Let me know if you have a building in mind.
Why do we need a new birth center?
How about we each take a turn answering a little bit of this one? So I will start out by saying that we need to have choices for families in Lane County. Lane County is a place where families want to have that choice of a birth center, and so we need to keep that available as an option that is valuable right along with having access to hospital birth and home birth. And tagging onto that a little bit, I would also say that this is an option that's based in the community that is very accessible because it takes health insurance. And so having that option that is outside of the hospital but still accepts health insurance is really important to have access for everyone in our community. What would you like to add?
I think I said in my remarks the importance of having choices, and right now there is a big gap in choices in Lane County with the closure of the Peace Health Birth Center. And so having historically had the choice of a birth center, 35 years ago I was able to have that choice with my son. I think we need to restore that choice for women and their families and their babies. It's critically important, and I think if you look around and listen to the little babies' comments in this very room, I think that speaks to what we need.
I think as a doula, I see the need and the desire for a birth center in the birthing community. And as a birthing person myself, it's really important to me to be in an environment where natural birth is trusted and the norm, because that allows you to go within and hold on to that trust within yourself too.
I was just thinking that the first birth center was started out of the back of one of our colleagues' car. That was their office until they actually were able to get the first building. And through the permutations of the birth center, we have continued to have one of the highest out-of-hospital birth population in Lane County, and there is definitely a desire here for it, and also for the nurse midwives. We like practicing that way. It's a totally different feel when you are attending a birth at the birth center or having a baby there. I had 2 in the birth center in Chicago, than to be in the hospital. And regardless, we need the hospital, we need those facilities to make the birth center as friendly as it is.
Just one more thing to add to that. Statistically, birth centers provide better outcomes outcomes. So that's important as well.
Better outcomes at a lower cost. And currently, there is a crisis in the U.S. There is a maternal health crisis, and C-section rates are much higher than they should be. And birth centers are an evidence-based way to address that problem in our community and throughout the U.S.
I was very fortunate to make use of the old birth center services, as well as all the midwives that provided me an OHP member with prenatal care at the Charlottetown Clinic. I'm wondering if you're going to have any affiliation with the Charlottetown Clinic in the future, or is that going to be completely separate for prenatal care?
This is a question about the Charlottetown Prenatal Clinic, where this mom received her care and then gave birth at the birth center. And we look forward to maintaining and building, well, I should say building relationships throughout the community so that we can accept referrals from various other clinics when a family decides that they want a birth center birth, that they can be referred to the birth center and get their care with us. So we definitely look to maintain those relationships and connections so that there can be an easy referral process.
How did the conversation start to launch a new birth center for the community, and what were the voices involved? Like, who were they? Who were the people that were really behind it?
This is a good question. So it started with, oh yes, thank you. So this is a question about how did this get started? Who started this conversation and who launched this? And it started with a small group of us who were former employees of the birth center. And so it started with myself and Holly Russell and Annie Hogue and Sarah and Meg. And us sitting down and talking and planning, what do we want to do? What's the next step? And it has grown into this.
I would like to add that this conversation really started in the back of Ida Lasserson's car 40-some years ago. This is something that our community has desired and wanted for a long, long time. And when Peace Health decided to close the birth center, there was immediately a passionate response from the providers and from the community to say, we need this option in our community and we can do this. And it's been really exciting to be a part of that. Early on, there was tremendous support from the community and the providers, and there continues to be incredible support.
Yes, I agree with all of that. And if not for all of the advocacy that Lynn County Friends of the Birth Center has done this summer, like they are an inspiration, a sign that the community wants this service and deserves to have this service.
In addition to the wraparound services and the holistic model of care and the evidence-based better outcomes, cost sometimes is a barrier for access for consumers. Is there a sense of the difference in cost for accessing family birthing services through the midwives, through a community birth center, compared to traditional access to birthing services through obstetric services? Is there some estimate of the differential there? And I've also come to understand that some services, some traditional OB services require an access fee, if you will, some sort of cash down payment. Will that be an issue for accessing services through the new birth center?
This is a question about the cost of services at the new birth center. And it's, when you look at our projected budget, it's very clear that the cost of a birth in the birth center is significantly less, thousands of dollars less than the cost of a birth in the hospital, and especially compared to the cost of a C-section in the hospital. As a nonprofit, we will be able to offer some sliding scale options and alternative options to help with families who might not have health insurance or can't afford what it would cost with their insurance, because sometimes you have health insurance but it still doesn't cover as much as you need it to. So we'll be able to offer some alternative options and work with families on a one-on-one basis to make that work. We could take couple more questions, and then we can stop so that there's an opportunity if anyone wanted to socialize a little bit or ask one-on-one questions.
Do you have a plan for offering culturally matched care in terms of Spanish-speaking midwives and doulas and background services and other questions?
Answer in Spanish.
This is a question about if we plan to offer culturally relevant services and caring for Spanish-speaking families, for example, and other families. And Holly is whispering that I should answer the question in Spanish. I'll let Chris answer the question because I know she's very passionate about this, and I am too.
Right now, our executive director, who is going to eventually be our first midwife, speaks fluent Spanish, and I'm delighted to say that. We have doulas that speak Spanish. We have a childbirth educator who's interested in helping us that speaks Spanish. Unfortunately, that only addresses the Spanish community. I think there is a wide variety of cultural needs in our community, and the midwifery model is inherently and traditionally very sensitive to cultural needs.
What would it look like receiving birth services from the midwifery center if you had a high-risk pregnancy?
This is a question about what happens if someone has a high-risk pregnancy and they want to get services from the midwives. We have developed a clinical planning committee, and that clinical planning committee will include nurses, midwives, doctors, doulas, a variety of professionals who are experts in perinatal health, and they will be working to set our guidelines for our practice to make sure that we are practicing safely and following established guidelines. So there, as far as the birth center, there are certain high-risk conditions that would require that person have a hospital birth instead of a birth center birth, and that's part of our goal to maintain relationships with other healthcare providers in the community to help with those referrals when needed. But we do have a committee set up to help us establish those guidelines and to review the current evidence when making those guidelines.
And before you close the press conference, would you please speak to the capital fundraising event on 11th of December?
Yes, I will talk about the fundraising event that we have coming up, and then we'll close the official press conference, but the four of us sitting up here are available to answer other questions one-on-one if you have more questions after this. So on Wednesday, December 11th, from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at Capitello Wines, we have a capital fundraising campaign launch event that we are very excited to be organizing and sharing with everyone. It is a family-friendly event. Everyone is welcome to attend. We will be honoring some of our donors. Actually, all of our donors will be honoring. So feel free to make a donation today or on our website later. We would love to recognize you and honor you at that event, and also to celebrate what is coming for our community and share more about the next steps. That's only 3 weeks away, but I know our board of directors is working so hard, and every week we take new steps towards starting this new birth center, and so we will have new things to announce at that event, I'm sure.
Can I just say really quickly, thank you. Our community really appreciates all of your dedication to making sure we all have access to midwifery care. And so just from us to you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.